Mr. Chair, I apologize for the delay, but the meeting is now live.
Okay.
I could ask Ms. Malone Wright to reiterate for 35 Coral Crescent, just so that it is properly captured in the live stream.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Our first application before the committee today is a deferred application for a consent for 35 Coral Crescent. This was originally deferred from a meeting back in October 19th, 2021. It was deferred to provide an opportunity for the applicant to provide elevation drawings, a conceptual plot plan, and an up-to-date phase 1 record of site condition. Staff have been back and forth with the applicant over the last few months, and most recently have been advised that the applicant feels the proposal is at least a couple of years out and has requested to formally withdraw their application.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Back to application A/2022-60. No one registered in opposition. We have an agent and the applicant. And I see the agent in any event is online. Aaron, does anyone have any questions or comments for the applicant or a motion or for staff? Jennifer.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. It appears to me that this parking lot is legal non-conforming. So I'm not sure I understand why it has to be legalized.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The parking lot was established legally back several years ago. What has happened over the years is that it has gradually been encroaching closer to the street line. We've been reviewing the aerial photos of the property and determined that the last activity of paving and curb installation actually brought the parking area closer to Victoria Street than what was originally approved. And so the reason is the parking area does not comply with zoning. It once did, does not any longer, and now requires an application for committee adjustment.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Mr. Chair, subject to any further questions from other members of committee, I'm happy to make a motion that this application be approved.
All right. Second, Bob. Oh, did you have a question, Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I did. I did notice in this application that there's a note from Metrolinx, their railway corridor, and should that be included in our recommendation?
Tina, do you want to comment on that? Are we handling this like we're handling Bell?
Sorry, trying to get myself on mute here.
Yeah,
yes, that's correct. Handling the same way that we would with Bell. It's not a condition that needs to be incorporated into this decision.
Okay. All right.
Then in that case, Mr. Chair, I will second the motion.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, our next application is a minor variance application for 15 Palace Street. It's minor variances to permit a multiple dwelling to have an increase in building height and for a reduction in the number of required parking spaces. The variances will facilitate the development of 2 8-story multiple dwellings having 266 dwelling units. I just would note for the committee that there is a rounding error that has occurred with respect to the amount of parking that will be provided. Instead of 0.86, the parking requirement will actually be 0.857. So the applicant will be providing 228 parking spaces instead of 229 as noted in the report. So it's just a rounding error that has occurred. The actual parking provision will be 228 parking spaces. Staff reviewed the variance in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and find that meets all 4 and is recommending approval.
Okay. Does anyone have any? Is the applicant online? I don't see him. Brendan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Brendan is on the line and we are just trying to get him promoted to join the call.
Okay. There he is.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Brendan. Thank you. Okay, staff's recommending approval with an amendment to the recommendation, slight amendment from 0.86 to 0.857 and 228 parking spaces from 229. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or motions, Scott?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for staff, Mr. Chairman. I'm fully supportive of the application, but I note that the intent of the zoning bylaw is to allow 8 stories, and the applicant is doing that, but your urban design requirements force the first floor to be 4.5 meters high. Are you going to make a bylaw amendment so we can avoid these types of situation in the future?
Yes, as part of the NPR or neighborhood planning review work, we were looking at the mixed zones and looking at revising the building height in the mixed zones to accommodate that 4.5 meter ground floor that is required for retail uses. So that is on the books for a housekeeping amendment in the future.
That's terrific. Thank you very much.
Great. Anyone else? Questions or motion? Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have read through this report and both the requests are very minor. So I move that this be approved as per the staff report.
Great, thanks. Second? Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Brandon.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for a property at 619 Sterling Avenue South. The variance is to permit a deck with a height greater than 0.6 meters to be located 0 meters from the side lot line rather than the required 1.2 meters. Staff have reviewed the application in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and are recommending approval without conditions.
Good, thank you. I'm just waiting for the applicant to come into the room. There we go. All right. I believe this one had a GRCA fee that should be put in as a condition. That was maybe overlooked. And then otherwise, is there any questions or comments or motion? Scott?
I had a quick question for the applicant, if he or she is available.
Yes,
The reason why you're looking to build the deck right up to the lot line is to allow access to I guess to a side kind of entry. I'm looking at the back elevation. There's a big square there. Is that a slider or is that just a big window?
the picture that was included is the side of the house. There will be a gate at the end. And yes, we'd like to use the side of the house, put our recycling there, garbage container, maybe a rain barrel.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture of the back of the house.
Okay.
It's on page 118 of our report, and there's a big, huge square. I'm just wondering if that is a window or is that a slider?
No, we put a tarp down because we wanted to create a garden there in the spring. Yeah. The white square, right?
Yes, I think he's referring to this picture, right, Scott?
Thank you.
And you're referring to that right there, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the need for this going right out to the lot line, if that's an entryway to the backyard.
That's, yeah, we use the other side. I'm trying to find that other picture. That is from Heritage Design.
Yeah,
And the square, where is it? Okay, this picture, right?
You don't have your camera on.
Sorry for you, Mr. Chair. I believe that we're having a small technical issue with Zoom where I'm unable to promote our attendees to join as panelists. So she is not able to turn her video on and I'm not
Okay.
able to help her in doing so.
Oh, sorry, I can try.
No, it's not you. Unfortunately, it's me today. We're having some strangeness with the Zoom platform this morning.
Maybe Sorry, maybe Mr. Scott Hannan can show me the picture again. I don't think I have that picture in my package.
To me, it looks like it's a sliding door. You're planning on putting a sliding door. You have a sliding door from your house onto your deck, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm, Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking the question because the neighbor is now going to be facing what appears to be a 10-foot high fence, which is going to cause some significant shadowing to the backyard. So, I mean, I obviously the neighbor's not here and doesn't care. So I'm just expressing that concern.
Yeah, I think I saw an elevation here too, Scott. Oh yeah, it's 8 feet plus 37 inches. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I almost missed this 37 inches the way that it's showing there. Yeah, Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the same concerns as Mr. Hanna, but again, also note that the neighbor most affected or impacted by this variance is not here and doesn't appear to have any concerns. If the committee is prepared to approve it, and I'm prepared to make a motion if, at the appropriate time, perhaps we should impose a condition limiting the height of the platform to the 37 feet. So that we don't end up with a, I mean, it's unlikely given that the size of the house, but if they were to redevelop the house, want to make sure that that platform doesn't get any higher than it already is proposed to be.
Okay, so then you're proposing a condition to, for the elevation of the deck floor to be no greater than 37 inches?
Yes, Mr. Chair. That's what I'm proposing.
Okay,
The other question I was going to ask about too was why the need for 8 feet above the deck? It seems a little excessive to me. I was going to suggest a condition about maybe making a 6-foot high fence above the deck. I mean, if you're considering privacy, that it just 11 feet to me seems really excessive for a fence next to somebody's backyard.
yeah, a quick question for staff. Committee of Adjustments no longer deals with fence variances. However, I believe the maximum height, correct me if I'm wrong, for a fence is 8 feet, is it not? And if so, they will have to go to council for approval for a variance on that?
I can look up that regulation. I don't recall it off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
I don't remember.
But I would suggest that if you are looking at adding wording of that type, that it be incorporated as part of the decision and not a condition, so that the variance apply to a deck having a base of so many inches and having a fence of such and such, so that we don't get into a circular position again with not being able to have the variance come into effect because they can't install the fact and can't install the base and such and such. So they can't get that building permit because it's tied as a condition to the variance. So just asking that you incorporate it as wording as part of the variance decision rather than as conditions.
All right. The other thing that we need to caution ourselves with is that we are not overstepping our bounds and approving the height of a fence. That was my concern, that we really no longer have the authority to do if it's outside of the bylaw. So I agree with Mr. Hanna's suggestion, but I don't know if we're really able to do that or not.
May I suggest that you incorporate wordings that talk about the base height of the deck and then
Yeah.
fencing in accordance with the zoning bylaw?
Yeah, okay. How's that, Scott?
That's fair.
Yeah, Jennifer? All right, that sounds good. All right, then that being the case, we ready for a motion then? Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick comment from my memory, the maximum height of a fence is 8 feet.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Converted into metric. So having that been said, you've put a condition in there about the GRCA fee. So I think we've got this all cleaned up. So I move that this be approved as amended.
All right, second. Jennifer, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for a property at 145 Byron Avenue. The applicant is requesting variances to permit or facilitate the conversion of an existing attached garage into an additional dwelling unit, detached. Variances relate to the side yard of the principal dwelling and a variance to allow the ADU to exceed the maximum permitted building floor area 50% to 53%. Staff is recommending that the variances be approved as they meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. Staff is currently processing a site plan application for the ADU, and it will be able to be finished processing once the variances are approved.
Great, thank you. This one, I noticed that it also had the same request from CN, and maybe just, Tina, maybe you just want to read in the staff's position so that we have it on file anyways in regards to that.
Yes, so the zone currently permits residential uses, and so the applicant is developing the property in accordance with the zoning permitted uses of the zone.
And it pertains to CN's request for, I think, an easement as well, that we won't deal with that through committee of adjustments, correct?
No, it's not the appropriate.
Okay, I just wanted that written into the minutes. That's all, so that's reflected accordingly. And CN understands why it was handled this way. That's all. CN Rail. Okay, anyone have any questions, comments? No one registered in opposition. That you, oh, Jennifer, I'm sorry. There we go. I saw Bob's pencil twirling, so I was distracted.
Again, I'm just wondering if we need a condition here. I know there's an email and a revised drawing that talk about the accessory unit being completely detached from the main house. So I'm thinking, again, a condition should be in there requiring that the unit be detached from the existing rear covered deck. Subject to that condition, I have no concerns with the application.
Tina, do you want to address that?
Yes, thank you. So it's an interesting difference between 85.1 and the new zoning bylaw 2019-051. Under 85.1, a triplex is not permitted. So in order to facilitate the conversion of that attached garage, they actually need to detach it so it's not a triplex. But under the new zoning bylaw, which is currently under appeal, we do permit 2 additional dwelling units attached. So they wouldn't need to actually detach it if it was being constructed or developed as such under the new zoning bylaw. So they have either option to develop the property, so they don't necessarily need to detach that garage if the new bylaw comes into effect. So the decision is flexible to allow both. So under 85.1, they would need to remove the roof structure. And if under the old, new bylaw, then that's not required. So I don't think it's required as a condition. It's just, it depends on what bylaw they're planning to develop or convert the garage into the dwelling unit under.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure I fully agree with that, only because if they come in for it says in accordance with the drawings, but the drawings don't actually show, the drawings actually show an attached garage with a note that it be detached. I'm not, and if they go in for a building permit, so long as that is, assuming they're going in for a building permit within the next little while, I assume that provision will remain under appeal. And so they will have to comply with the most restrictive. And I think it is that number 2. And I do think it should be a condition. I'm not sure that substantially in accordance with the drawings does it, because the drawings aren't clear that the covered porch has to be removed. It just has a note that it will be removed, and it shows the covered porch. So I think for clarity that a condition is required. That's my opinion on that, subject to whatever other members of committee think.
Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. If I understand it correctly, it's all a matter of the timing of whether we're going under bylaw 85-1 or the new bylaw 2019-51. And it's all a matter of timing. I think that this can probably be dealt with at the time the applicant goes for a building permit. I'm sure the building department knows which bylaws to look at the time. So I would think that I don't think we need extra conditions on the removal of a small connection of the roof to the from the roof of the ADU to the roof of the primary building. So I'm fine with the way the application is now.
Anyone else? Scott?
Just, Mr. Chairman, to let you know where I sit, I kind of support what Robert's saying. And I think through the generally in accordance with the drawings, if they decide to remove the connection, that will be something that will be handled through the final site plan that's stamped and approved. And therefore, the most onerous bylaw 85-1 will be the one that's used. So I don't think there's a necessity for a condition either.
Okay, someone want to make a motion? Scott?
Yeah, I'm prepared to move the recommendation as presented by staff under both bylaws.
All right, second, Bob, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, but I need to excuse myself from the meeting for 5 minutes if that is all right with the committee, and I'll just take a quick pause.
Need to get your dog out for a walk, Mike.
Can hear that?
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Please excuse me.
yeah. I think we can carry on, Tina.
Okay, thank you. The next minor variance application is for a property at 79 Stanley Avenue. The applicant is requesting variances in order to facilitate the reconstruction of an existing attached garage in its current location. So it's to permit an exterior side yard setback of 1 meter instead of the required 6 meters, and to legalize the driveway on a corner lot located 1.6 meters from the intersection instead of the required 9 meters. Staff have reviewed the minor variances and find they meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act and are recommending approval.
Great, thanks, Tina. Straightforward application. No one registered in opposition. Anyone have any questions, comments, or motion? Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just trying to shuffle through the report here. It says the conditions to facilitate the reconstruction of an existing attached garage, etc. Drawings prepared by David Gross. The only drawings that I can see are prepared by JD Barnes, and there's 2 of them, but one has been modified with some handwritten notes in between the drawing and the legend. Do we need to note or solidify that these modifications were done by Mr. David Gross?
No, I think we should probably make reference to the name that's stamped on the drawings.
But
Or
then
maybe saying it on, just make reference to that plan, I would think.
but the trouble is they're 2 different ones. I guess
It would be the revised one, would it not?
yeah, okay, the revised. I'm okay.
Yeah,
The revised JD Barnes drawing. Okay, I'm
Sure.
fine with that.
sure. Okay, so is that a motion, Bob?
Sure, I'll make that a motion, even though, just a comment, some of these variances, like from 6 meters down to 1 meter, those are fairly significant variances. But having said that, it does seem to fit, and we have the drawings, the revised drawings. So I move that this be approved as slightly amended with the drawing name.
Okay, and the approval not as a condition. So second. Jennifer, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for a property at 305 Barrow Meadow Drive, unit number 5. These are minor variances to facilitate the development of a one-story sunroom addition in the rear yard of the existing street townhouse dwelling. Staff has reviewed the minor variances in accordance with, in conformance with the Fortescue Planning Act and find that it meets all 4 and is recommending approval.
No one's registered in opposition. Is there any comments or questions? Or a motion? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is very straightforward. There's no region, no GRCA. The comment that they're generally in accordance with the drawings prepared by Lifestyle Sunrooms, which are attached. So I move that this be approved as per the staff report, with no conditions.
Second? Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Our next minor variance application is for a property at 10 Castle Bay Street. This is a minor variance to permit steps in the side yard to have a setback of 0.3 meters instead of the required minimum 0.75 meters. Staff has reviewed the variance in light of the Fortescue Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4 and is recommending approval.
Okay, no one's registered in opposition. And I had a question for the applicant, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues. Did you plan on having stairs on both sides of this landing or just on the one side?
So the landing is only one side of it's just
Of the house.
of the house, yeah.
Right. And so where do you plan on having stairs? I'm just curious. You plan on having them just on one end or both, so you can actually cross over? Because otherwise you can't walk up this, go on this side of the house into the backyard from the front yard.
Yeah, so we are planning to put an additional fence door on the other side of the house so that we can have them like all the equipment like lawnmowers that we can take it through.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then that means you will have stairs on from the street side of that landing only?
So yeah, just a 3x3 landing on the in front of the door with 8 inches height.
Right. And where are the stairs going to be?
The stairs are so when I enter inside the door, there's again a big landing area, and then the stairs are going in the basement from the landing area.
Right. How about outside? Where are the stairs going to be?
There won't be any stair, just one landing area with 8.
And that's it.
And that's it.
All right, Bob.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think figure 3 on page 197 quite clearly indicates the installed, already existing step and landing. So,
all right.
I think this is a very minor variance, and
I was just curious.
Yeah, I understood. I think this is a fairly minor variance, and nothing from the region, the GRCA, and nobody in opposition to it. So I move that this be approved as per the staff report.
Hang on a sec there, Bob. Scott had his hand up. For something.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Scott?
Sorry, not to confuse the situation, Mr. Chairman. I had a similar question for the applicant and/or staff. The way I'm reading this is that this particular landing is only going to be 7.5 inches high. So the landing itself is acting as the step. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So why does it need a variance? I've never seen anything like this.
So currently the step is only 1 feet 2 inches wide. But the building division has a requirement that we should have a 3x3 landing outside the side entrance.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's only 7.5 inches off grade. I mean, it's like putting a little slab out the side there. Like,
yeah, that's where my confusion was coming to, Scott.
Yeah,
I fully support it, Mr. Chairman. I just don't think it's required.
Yeah, no, I know. I know. I don't disagree, actually. In any event, there's a motion on the floor to approve the application. We're all here looking at it now, so we might as well move it forward. I don't disagree with you at all, Scott, either. It's a stare. So motion, do I have a second? Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, our next application is for 58 Brubaker Street. This is a minor variance application to permit an existing detached garage in the rear yard to be converted into an additional dwelling unit. Staff have reviewed the most recent survey drawing. It does show that at the shortest point, the setback is 0.51 at the shortest distance. The other corner is 0.52. The variance was advertised at a reduction of 0.6 to 0.5. I would suggest that at a minimum, it'd be 0.51 in the decision to reflect the shortest distance of the one corner of the garage. But staff had reviewed the application in light of the setback being 0.5 meters. Staff have reviewed that setback in light of the four tests of the Planning Act and finds that it meets all four and is recommending approval of the minor variance.
Okay, we have two people registered. One is the applicant, one is in opposition. Is the person in opposition online? There we go. Mary Catherine, and you're in opposition, so I will.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I would not say I'm in opposition.
Oh, that's the way it's reflected in my notes here, so.
I would like to be aware of what is going on.
Okay.
That is at this point.
You have not seen the application or the notification?
I saw the application. I had questions.
Okay, what are your questions then?
I would like to listen to what you have to say, that's all.
Oh, all right, then we'll move on to the applicant. And anyone have any questions, comments, or motions for the applicant? Bob?
Seeing there's no one responding, Mr. Chair, let me just quickly explain to the committee information for the person who is registered as in opposition, who says not really. All that's going on here is the applicant is planning to convert the existing detached garage to an additional dwelling unit as permitted. And the variance is really very, very small, about 3 inches if you want to go in the old imperial measurement. So that's like that much, very minor. So Mr. Chair, unless anyone has any other comments, I move that this application be approved. There's a slight amendment on one of the dimensions, 0.51 as opposed to 0.52. So I move that this be approved as amended by staff.
Second? Scott, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for a property at 49 Queen Street South. The applicant is requesting variances to allow residential uses on the ground floor, which are not permitted unless the entirety of the dwelling is used as a multiple dwelling, and also to permit 26 parking spaces instead of the existing 34 parking spaces. Staff has reviewed the variances in light of the Planning Act, finds that they meet all four, and is recommending approval.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments for the applicant? No one is registered in opposition. I think the application and the supported material speaks well for itself. So, Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Not meaning to correct Ms. Malone Wright, but the address is 25 Queen Street North, not South. Minor change there. I think it's really great when there's 2 letters of support for the application. And I think that the applicant is doing a wonderful thing in providing affordable housing. So I move that this be approved as per the staff report with no conditions.
Second, Jennifer? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Good luck.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for a property at 92 River Road East. These are variances to facilitate the development of a 5-story residential building having 14 dwelling units. It's currently being processed under a site plan application through planning. One variance is to permit an increase in floor space ratio. The second relates to side yard setbacks, and the third variance relates to a reduction in the parking from 25 to 16 parking spaces. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the four tests in the Planning Act and find that they meet all four and is recommending approval.
Okay, good. We have two people registered to speak to this application. One is the applicant and in support, or the agent for the applicant. The other is someone in opposition. Ron Heimel is in opposition, so we'll hear from Ron first.
Have I tuned in?
Yes, you are. There you go, Ron.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to appear here and to have voice at the meeting. You have received our letter outlining the items we feel deserve attention. The first thing, the agenda data does not appear to address the lot frontage or the lot width, as does the adjustment agenda. Just wondering what has transpired that that's not any longer a part of the discussion.
Tina, are you able to answer that question?
Yes, sorry, I missed a variance as it relates to the new zoning bylaw 2019-51. So in our new residential zone, there is a lot width requirement for a multiple dwelling of 30 meters now, and the lot width is 19.6 meters. So this lot width does comply with 85.1, but with the new zoning bylaw and the new requirements, it does require variance to lot width. Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you.
So the lot width is sufficient for what's being proposed.
Yes.
All right. The application seems to require some major, not minor exemptions to the bylaw. And as it pointed out in the letter, it aggressively adds to several of the items of concern that the city is dealing with. The decreasing amount of tree canopy coverage and the increasing amount of stormwater runoff. This plan requires the removal of over 70 trees and replaces none of them. And the present stormwater runoff from the property is basically nil, while the plan appears to drain almost 100% of the stormwater. We're just wondering that one department of the city is saying this is a problem that we've got to deal with, and another department in relation to this application is saying there's no issue.
Those items will be dealt with through a site plan application, correct, Tina? In which case those things will all be properly addressed, and Tina can expand on that comment, I guess.
Yes, so as noted earlier, this proposal is being reviewed under a site plan application here in the planning division. So items such as the trees and stormwater will be reviewed through that application to ensure that they meet city standards. City cannot issue site plan approval until the variances are approved. And once they are approved, then we can proceed to issue site plan approval and have the applicant enter into a site plan agreement to address those items.
So that will all be dealt with through that process, Ron.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the explanation. If you're open to a further comment on the property use, I would be prepared to give you a short comment.
Sure.
As further consideration, I would point out that the 3 adjoining properties, along with this property that we're dealing with, comprises an area of approximately 2 acres. It's a large block of land. The 3 adjoining properties at present each have a single-family dwelling on them. Perhaps the city planning department might consider working with the owners of these 4 properties to develop something really significant, like maybe including private-public use to help accommodate the greatly increased intensification that has taken place in the immediate area. There's been 12 townhomes added on Turner Avenue, which is immediately behind this property. And there's been over 50 townhomes added a block away on Rosemount on the previous Notre Dame school site. So that change resulted in the loss of the schoolyard as parkland. As the owner of one of these properties, we would be pleased and would participate and support in such a discussion.
Okay, good. Thanks, Ron. I think that's noted and maybe can be kept in mind for things moving forward.
All right, thanks, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. Yeah, just one other thing, just before we carry on here, Scott. Once again, CN had made a request for easement on this application as well, and just so that we can read it into the minutes, that this committee's been advised that it doesn't have the authority to grant such requests, so we will not be able to do that, just so it's reflected in the minutes. And first off, Scott, before we move on, I see Dave, the applicant, do you have your hand up for a reason? Did you want to say something or?
Yeah, actually, so I apologize for the late comment here, but we are in receipt of Ron's written correspondence, and I understand that the owner has had some previous discussions with him in the past. If it would be possible, we would appreciate, the opportunity to have further discussions with Ron and potentially defer the application until next month, so that those types of conversations could occur. So I was crafting an email, but you guys are moving through the agenda fairly quickly today. But if that would be a possibility, the client or my client has said that they would be amenable to having further discussions with Ron.
Sure, Scott.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make, Mr. Chairman, and I was going to ask the applicant if any effort had been made to try to assemble properties to the north, because they're all zoned and designated for medium density, and rather than squeezing with, again, limited amount of ability to do landscaping on this property, if even the next property were assembled, you wouldn't need a minor variance for lot width. You probably would come up with a beautiful design that would not require any variances whatsoever, and everybody would be happy. So I was going to ask the applicant whether any effort had been made to try to assemble additional properties.
Yeah, good. So how much time do you think you would like, Dave?
I think ideally, if we were able to come back for next month, I think that would be great. Do you need to set a lapsing period for when we need to return to the committee, or is it?
We generally do, yes. So it just can't hang out there forever. That's why. So,
okay.
We can afford you some flexibility.
Okay.
What you think that you really practically require. I don't know if a month may not actually be enough time.
Right. So maybe would half a year be a possibility then?
Sure. I don't see why not. I don't think staff would have a problem with that. Would you, Tina?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if at all possible, I would recommend that we keep it within the current term of council.
I was just going to say that too. It should be kept within the current term of this committee, yes. Which the last meeting of this committee will be in November of this year. So if you want, Dave, we could give a deferral until that time.
Yes, that seems reasonable.
And then it's still under the purview of the existing committee without any without a new structure. Okay, so the motion then to defer at the request of the applicant to the November meeting. Scott makes a motion. Second is Jennifer. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. There you go, Ron. That'll give you an opportunity to talk to them further about this.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Before we proceed on to the next item, I did just want to add that due to the technical difficulties we were experiencing this morning, I do have Pierre Chauvin for this next item, but he will be speaking through my connection at this time.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
I'll proceed then. Next item is an application for 17 Benton Street. Staff have reviewed this application. It's an application for permission under section 45(2) of the Planning Act to permit the enlargement or extension of a legal non-conforming 3-story commercial office building, to continue to have a 0-meter setback to the lane, and to permit an increase in FSR to 3.2 to facilitate the construction of a 4th-story addition. This is being processed in accordance with a site plan application here at the city. Staff have reviewed the application and are recommending approval.
Okay. No one is registered in opposition. We have the applicant online through alternate connection. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or a motion? Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I want to first indicate that I have no objection at all to the application. I'm just struggling with the fact that it's being suggested that it's permission under 45(2) of the Planning Act, which is extension of a legal non-conforming use. I personally believe it should be under a minor variance approach. We had an application earlier this morning at 145 Byron Avenue, which again was recognized an existing non-complying side yard, and it was dealt through variances. So I'm just putting that out there for the record, and I'll let it play out. So.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Anyone else?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I of the opinion that this is a 45(2)B application, which applies not only to legal extension of legal non-conforming uses, but extension of legal non-complying structures. I do have a concern with the test that's set out in the staff report. It's written as a 3-part test. I'm of the opinion that the case law is pretty clear that it's a 2-part test, and represents good planning is not part of that test. In fact, the case law suggests that the two tests themselves encapsulate the concept of good planning. And I just want to put that out there because I teach planning law at a university course that I have for the past 5 years. And I've always taught that it's a 2-part test. So I just want to be clear that I'm not of the opinion that this is how the test should be written. And so with that, I support the application. Sorry, I should also note that my concern there is also to the fact that if this were to be put forward as a precedent, then if for whatever reason staff determined that the application failed under that third test, represents good planning, then I would say we would have an error of law. So I just want to be clear that the test, in my opinion, is a 2-part test. I think it is satisfied, and I think it is the appropriate approach for this application. Nonetheless, I think the application this morning is distinguishable in the fact that it was changing uses. Permitted uses, but nonetheless, it was changing uses. So with those comments, Mr. Chair, I also fully support the application and am prepared to make a motion.
All right, unless anyone else has any other comments, then we'll take a motion. Jennifer? Bob, did you have something?
Very quickly, Mr. Chair, thank you to Ms. Meter for clarifying the status under the tests under the Planning Act. It's nice to have that advice from someone who actually teaches this stuff. So that's great. I'm prepared. I think this is an excellent application, and I'm prepared. No, there is a motion on the floor, so I will second the motion.
All right. Just to reaffirm, Jennifer, you did make a motion, correct? Okay. Motion second, all in favor? Carry. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our first consent application of this morning. This is a consent for the property address as 5 South Drive. The application is requesting consent. They would like to demolish the existing single detached dwelling and create 2 new lots for single detached dwellings. Staff have reviewed the application and are recommending approval subject to a number of conditions.
All right. Just for clarification, again, just so it's read into the file, then Bell has requested a easement, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tina, but we are advised that we don't have the authority to grant said easement.
Not within the scope of this application. And
Yes.
just to clarify, it's not 2 new single detached, 2 new duplex dwellings on each of those lots.
Okay, good, thank you. There's only one person registered to speak to the application. I know we did receive, I think, something this morning or yesterday from someone else in regards to some concerns. However, unfortunately, they're not here to speak to those concerns specifically, so we can move forward then with the application. And the applicant is, does anyone have any questions, comments, or a motion? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have some questions.
Sure.
First off, with the written opposition, one was not necessarily opposed, but wants a green building, and the other was traffic concerns, which have already been dealt with. I have a concern, and we've discussed this many times over the last couple of years. What are these? It's going to be converted to 2 duplexes, but what are they going to look like? There was an application that came in that showed a potential duplex that, in my opinion, is completely out of character with the rest of the neighborhood. The existing neighborhood are mostly bungalows, some 1.5 story, some 2 stories, but nothing quite like what the potential could be for these duplexes, and there are no elevations. So I think this should, I'm not making a motion at the moment, I want to hear from my colleagues. I think this should be deferred with the request for more information on what these duplexes are going to look like elevation drawings or something. That's my comments for now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I concur with you too, Bob, just for everyone's noted. Scott, you have?
Yeah, I was gonna, I'm trying to protect my voice, Mr. Chairman. I apologize, but I fully support where Bob is heading to. You know, when I look at the, when I looked at the area and when I drove around, a lot of the existing fabric the same thing could happen to them, and it could destabilize the entire neighborhood. And there are in fact policies in the official plan about, you know, the stability and character of neighborhoods, and it does in fact say that the city may require drawings, and I don't quite understand why in cases like this it's not a requirement. I would like to see drawings on this because I'm worried that they will stick out like a sore thumb.
Potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I fully agree with the comments of Mr. McCall and Mr. Hanna, and would also like to see drawings. Again, that's, in my opinion, part of the criteria in 5124 is the purpose to which the lots are being subdivided. To Mr. Hanna's point about the official plan policies, they are recited in the staff report, particularly, you know, lot fabric, the impact on lot fabric and whatnot. But I don't see any substantive comments or opinion from staff on how those policies are met. So perhaps when this application comes back with drawings, if that's the direction the committee is going, perhaps staff can provide their opinion or comments on those particular criteria of the official plan as well. Thank you.
Good. Question for the applicant. Steve, I see you're online. First off, do you have an issue or problem with providing elevations? And if not, how much time do you think you would need to get them together? Steve, you there? You show that you're on mute.
Hello, can you hear me
Yes.
now?
Yep.
Sorry about that. So we do have the drawings, but I didn't think it was required for this meeting.
Yeah, they are.
We can provide them today, basically.
Okay, so what we'll do then is we'll look to a deferral to the next meeting. So that will be for next month's meeting. And then we can deal with this all at that time, once we have the elevations.
Is there any recommendations on what the drawings, what you guys require for the drawings to be, or?
You can work through that with staff. They know what we'll be looking for. And you've got 30 days to get it together then anyways, Bob.
Yes, Mr. Chair, seeing I'm the one who started it off and beat Mr. Hanna to the goalpost here. I move that this be deferred for 1 month for the applicant to provide more information, such as elevation drawings and some comments from staff on that. So my motion is to defer this for 1 month.
All right, we'd like to see elevations and footprint too, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Okay, deferral for 30 days or for next month's meeting. Okay, Tina, last application.
Yes, the last application is a consent application, actually 3 consent applications for 9 Pleasant Avenue. The applicant is intending on demolishing the existing single detached dwelling. The 2 lots at the corner would be for a new semi-detached dwelling, and then there would be 2 new single detached dwellings in the interior lots. So 4 dwellings in total, 3 new, considering the demolition of the existing single detached dwelling. So staff have reviewed the application and are recommending approval subject to a number of conditions.
Okay, good. We have 2 people registered, 1 in support, which is the applicant, 1 in opposition. Just before we go and hand it over to the person in opposition, I just want to make note in the recommendation that on page 378, I think there's a bit of a duplication or ambiguity, and clause 15 should probably be struck. Because clause 17, this is as it applies to regional consent fees. I think that's covered off in 17, unless I'm reading that wrong. And that then being said, we have someone in opposition. So yep, they're online. So we'll hear from them first.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you to the committee and for your time. My name's Kai. I'm able to be heard okay here?
Yes.
Right. So my wife and I are neighbors just 2 doors down from the property in question. We are homeowners at 23 Pleasant Avenue and have been here since 2018. And so I'm speaking on behalf of both of us. And also, while I don't speak on behalf of the full community, I just want to note that I have spoken with all of the neighbors in the immediate vicinity of where the proposed changes are to take place. And no one that I've spoken to at this time is confident in this proposal moving forward without further discussion with the broader community. So I did email the committee some concerns that have arisen since this proposed adjustment. First off, I think the major concern that I'd like to emphasize is the lack of any discussion with the broader community, some of whom have been living here for decades. So I would consider, my wife and I to be relatively new, having moved here in 2018, but there are folks who have been living here for decades And to my knowledge, there's been no discussion that I'm aware of with any of the existing community on what is to be a fairly substantial proposed change that will affect local residents across all along Pleasant and along Queen Street as well, where this intersects. So that's one concern. Another is that just to my knowledge, since the property was purchased, a number of significant changes have already taken place, one of which has been the removal of all mature trees from the property, which up until the recent purchase had existed on the property and also served as a protection against wind. So I just want to speak to that briefly, that our backyard is just 2 doors down from this one. And these, they must have been at least 80 to 100-year-old spruce trees. Were protecting our backyard from major wind coming through. Since their removal, we have had much more strong winds that actually ended up knocking down a tree in our yard during the last big Ontario storm. So while the removal of trees might seem like a small concern, it has changed the wind intensity through our property. It resulted in a tree of ours being knocked down, and we were very lucky that it did not hit the house. It's, of course, also a space for biodiversity, and it also serves as a bit of a privacy barrier and a noise buffer as well. So to my knowledge, again, the trees that have been removed in both the front and backyard, I'm not aware of any plans to replace those. And there was no neighborly discussion prior to their removal. I think that aside from this, it's significant that this property is located right across the street from St. Mary's Hospital. Pleasant Avenue serves as a significant corridor for ambulance traffic and paramedics going up and down the street. And what the proposal is here it raises significant concerns just around access to the hospital, both in my mind, both during construction and also just in terms of if the proposal is for 4 houses on this land, how are they going to be accessed? I'm assuming off of Pleasant. And it should be brought to the committee's attention that the St. Mary's Hospital itself has major construction plans. It's just received a new investment of funding for major construction over the next half year. So we're talking about a significant amount of construction happening right in this area. And I'm just curious, during a pandemic, how that's going to affect the access to the hospital. In addition to this, I think that there's just I'm just left with a lot of questions in terms of what are the properties being proposed and whether they will actually improve the neighborhood as a whole. Again, without any discussion with the community, we're talking about taking down a historical building. I recognize perhaps it has a lot of costly repairs. Maybe it needs to be taken down. But I would imagine there should be some discussion of how the proposed structures are going to actually fit in with the broader neighborhood. We're talking about a lot that is not that large, and to subdivide that into 4 and put in 4 houses is a significant change in this neighborhood. So I'm just surprised to see that this application is kind of being rushed through without a consideration of due process of how this will actually impact the community, for instance, impact others' property values in the area. And there's just so many questions that come up, and I'm just frustrated that there has not been a due process to actually engage with community members locally about what's being proposed before bringing this to the committee. So I think those are the main points I would like to make, and otherwise I would refer the committee to my emails. Thank you.
Thanks, Kai. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hand this over to the members of the committee now. They can ask any questions and move this application forward. Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In some ways, this application is very similar to the previous one, just the last one. I don't see any elevation drawings, and we have an obligation to make sure under the official plan that this kind of infill development is compatible with the existing neighborhood. The neighbors also would like to hear more from the applicant on what the applicant is proposing. So, Mr. Chair, I move that this be deferred for the applicant to provide elevations and other information that is required, and also to have some consultation with the neighbors. That is my motion, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Bob. I don't disagree with you except for one point. I don't think that we're, as a committee, should force consultation between neighbors. I think we should deal just with the application, the applicant, and the information that's provided. So
okay, Mr.
I couldn't support that application for the neighborhood portion, but I could for the elevation portion, just so that you're aware of that.
Okay, then the official motion would be to defer for further information and some advice to the applicant that maybe he should talk to his neighbors. So the advice part is not part of the motion, but
no, it's not part of the motion. That's just a statement after the motion. Okay, Jennifer, you had your hand up, and then Scott, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some general comments. I agree, for consistency, we should be looking at elevations. I think we need a protocol, but personally, I believe I understand, based on the information that's presented, how these lots will function and within the community. I think there is more evidence in this case and in the staff report, and then just from a review of the site and the lot fabric, that this is in keeping with the character of the area. Again, from my opinion and based on staff's opinion, there is a variety of unit types, lot sizes, and just a complete variety in this neighborhood. And I think that this application supports that. And I don't think it's going to be very much different from the directly abutting property at 941.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good application to some of the comments made about access to the hospital. I think that this is going to improve access to the hospital by putting more people in close proximity to it, for opportunities for staff and obviously non-staff residents. In terms of comments about trees and removal of trees, obviously we have no jurisdiction over trees being removed and that have already been removed. That's clearly within their own legal rights if they were not fined for that. But question for staff through you, Mr. Chair, is I note that one of the conditions of approval is for a tree preservation and protection plan, enhancement plan, in accordance with city's policies. I'm just wondering, can and do you expect the city will, Ms. Malone, require any sort of plantings along that rear property line?
Yeah, so as you correctly noted, a tree management, tree preservation enhancement plan is a condition of the consent. Staff were not aware of trees that were recently cut down. What could be done to modify this condition is that it could indicate that the plan also identify recently removed trees and possibly compensate in terms of financial or new plantings, those removals, if the committee so felt that was a desirable condition.
All right, thank you for that. I'm going to support Mr. McCall's motion as amended, but I just wanted to have some clarification on that for when and if it does come back before committee. Thank you.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support my colleague's recommendation for deferral as well, but I just wanted to suggest a couple of things for staff. When I went to see this site, I was surprised that there might not have been some historical or heritage implications here, but I just want to make sure that it is correct that heritage planning has no issue with this particular site at all.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
There's no cultural heritage, no.
Given the size of the property, I thought somebody significant might have lived there. Anyway, and the second thing, and this is just, again, we have 3 applications here and you've lumped them all into one resolution, and theoretically the committee could approve 2 and refuse 1. So I'm hoping that when it comes back, we can have individual resolutions, and that, you know, you've lumped all the parkland into one. And I don't like that. I'm not saying we're going to ultimately not approve them all. I'm just saying for a future application, you could technically refuse 1 and approve 2. That's all I'm saying. And then I'll make the same comment I always do. I don't like severing a semi down the party wall until the semi is built. I would have handled this application differently with a severance, and retained, and it would only have been 2 applications rather than 3. So that's why I'm saying I would prefer to see individual resolutions. And that's my comments.
Okay, question to the applicant. I guess you can see where this is going, that we're looking for a deferral to see some elevations. How much time, first off, you're in agreement with that deferral, number 1, and number 2 is how much time do you think you would need?
Yeah, thank you everybody for your time and for the meeting. So I think I need to consult with the owner first. Probably we'll be looking maybe next month or the month after. So if it is okay, if I can send email back.
Well, we have to make a decision at this point in time right now. Yeah. So I would maybe suggest that we do a 2-month deferral.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah.
And then that should give you enough time to be able to deal with the owner and deal with the information being requested. And then staff can help you if you have any questions. They can help you sort out specifically what we're looking for. They know what we're looking for. Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thanks. So Bob, that would be the period then, I guess, in regards to your motion. So you have the motion on the floor for elevations for a 2-month period, correct?
Yep.
Okay, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
If I might bother the committee for one more item of business.
Sure.
Thank you very much. I do need to ask that the committee appoints Diana Saunderson as the secretary treasurer for the committee of adjustment.
No, she's back, is she?
Yes, she will be back. And to appoint Marilyn Mills and Mariah Blake, 2 new committee administrators with the city, as acting secretary treasurers.
Okay, so I'll make that motion as just recited by Sarah. Second. Bob, all in favor? Carried. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. And if there is a motion to adjourn?
Bob, Jennifer, second.
Sorry, I had a question. Obviously, we're to be having these conversations while committee is sitting. So we've had a few of these applications for severances come through. In some instances, we are asking for elevations and others we're not. I don't know if it's something to think about at staff level, if there's a protocol or time, when we'll be asking for these so we can avoid these further delays, when we'll be wanting them and when not. I don't know what that protocol is, but just something to think about.
I think maybe as a rule of thumb, we should just make a requirement for every severance application that involves a residential dwelling. Like, we don't necessarily need one if it's for a subdivision or if it's, for industrial or something like that, but at least for a residential dwelling, where there's going to be a creation of another minimum of another lot and another dwelling. Bob?
Mr. Chair, I think that's a really great idea. Maybe we could add for any infill residential development.
Sure. Does that sound fair, Tina?
Yes, I'm fairly new to the committee this year. So in terms of process and protocols, ideally, we would like to have elevation, as much detailed drawings as we can through the consent process. In terms of deeming an application complete, it would have to be a requirement noted at pre-submission. So it's challenging to hold these applications up, but we will try and hold them back at a staff level as we can to ensure that we have all the information before the committee.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tina. You're doing a great job. So thank you.
Yeah, and I fully agree with what Tina's saying. There's no complete application requirements for minor variances. It's just, I guess, or for severance applications.
Yeah.
But if they can be encouraged, that's the best you can do, right?
Yes, exactly.
And forewarned that it's actually might end up slowing down their application if they don't provide it.
Yeah, because quite honestly, if an applicant wants to proceed, they're proceeding then at their risk without the elevations, and they're going to probably run the chance of the committee refusing the application in any event, but that's their choice, I guess, at that point in time, right? Okay, good. Move for adjournment.